Welcome everyone. We are thrilled to have you here today for our session, Better Together to Advance Gender Equity. My name is Kimberly Eason. I am the founder and the CEO of the Partnership for Gender Equity, now known as Equal Origins. We've existed for about 6 years now, born underneath the umbrella of the Coffee Quality Institute. I think most of you that are here know about our organization and are familiar with our work. My colleague Greg Minahan is here today, and we have two very special guests who I will introduce in just a couple of minutes. We're very excited to have everybody here. So why are we here? Why have we brought you all together? Why have we invited you, and why did you choose to show up? Well, we're very excited to have launched the Gender Equity Index. Most of you have heard about the tool either directly from us or in our outreach and prior webinars. The tool is live on a platform. It is freely and openly available. So we want to encourage you today to check out the tool. You can register as a demo service provider or farmer organization. We have two different tools. And so we really want to underscore how this tool is relevant to your current work and how you can integrate the Gender Equity Index approach to help meet your sustainability objectives. I think there's really no question about the fundamental importance of gender equity in both coffee and cocoa. So we're not going to dig too deeply into the importance of gender equity and women's empowerment in these sectors. So we have a huge opportunity to really, now that we understand the importance and now that we have some tools, to really take action in a systemic and scalable way. So today, we're going to orient the conversation around 3 key points. My colleague Greg and I will start to frame some of these points on setting a context for gender in coffee and cocoa, what's happening, understanding the opportunity of the Gender Equity Index, and then how you can get involved. We want to really focus on hearing from our panelists. They bring extensive experience, and we will have time for questions and answers at the end. Great. So now I have the honor of introducing our two panelists. So first, I'd like to introduce Brooke Cantrell. Brooke and I have known each other for quite a few years now. Brooke is the Vice President of Sustainability at Westrock, based in Arkansas. I met Brooke when she was working at Westrock in Rwanda. She's got extensive experience working in East Africa on sustainability programs, and we're really thrilled that she's going to bring her expertise, not only from her origin perspective, but also the work she's been doing at Westrock in sustainability. And then also Kate Cavallin, she's the head of Cacao Latitudes. They are the specialty coffee arm of the Ecom group. She's based in the UK. Kate as well has extensive experience working on the ground with farmer organizations in Ecuador, working with cocoa cooperatives to help them gain access to the market, and also too has been working on the issue of sustainability for a number of years. So it's really great that we have someone from coffee, Brooke from coffee, Kate from cocoa, different size companies, different focus, an end market company and an importer trader. So this is going to really lend to a wide-ranging conversation with really diverse experience and background. So we are excited to hear from them both. So to frame quickly the context that we find ourselves in with regards to gender equity in coffee and cocoa, is that around 70% of all of the labor in coffee and cocoa production is done by women. There are different reports, different studies that reflect the extent of the research that has been done in terms of the critical role that women play in both of these sectors. At the same time, what we know is that only about 20% of the participants in vocational education are women. So when we think about vocational education, This is the main investment that is made in sustainability and service provision on the ground has to do with training. There's a lot of really good and extensive training happening on the ground, good agricultural practices trainings, agroforestry training, carbon or climate risk mitigation trainings, many different trainings. What we are aware of, though, is that much of those services are not reaching and benefiting the women that are involved. So if you have women that are doing upwards of 70% of the work and only 20% participation in training, there's an important gap there that we can consider how to address in the sector. So this pie chart really underscores that of the vast amount of extension advisory services that are being provided, there is just a small amount that reaches and benefits women. And there really is no one reason that women are not participating. And that solving this issue requires more than just extending an invitation, more than just getting the word out to women and inviting them. And that's one of the things that we want to explore here with our panelists. So I'm going to turn off my screen for a moment here and invite Kate and Brooke to share their expertise, their points of view. Like, where are we on your based on your roles, Kate and Brooke, and your experience in the sectors? Where are we with regards to gender equity?
Sure. Thanks, Kimberly. And first, I really appreciate the invite and being part of this. The GEI and Equal Origins is a really great initiative, and I'm excited to be here. And I think that we're at a place, Brooke and I were chatting about kind of reporting numbers of number of women farmers that are in your network and number of women trained. What you reviewed is really what we're working with when it comes to gender, or we might have a sort of commercial project that highlights some women-led initiatives, but we don't have a greater understanding beyond those numbers about the kind of organizational capacity, about my experience running our commercial buying organization in Ecuador was in these programs. Most of these are family farms. So are we reaching women through their family unit, or are we working with single family households? So I think there's a lot that we have yet to kind of explore. And the Gender Equity Index is sort of the beginning of looking at it, not just as women, but as the structures, the organizations, and the relationships. And that's really, where we are, is looking for, I think, information, but also recognizing from country to country, as I've moved from a specific origin and running an operation very closely to different countries. And I think Brooke echoes, you start to understand that the differences between countries are unique and require, I think, a little bit more of a complex skill set than just a few reporting indicators. So definitely a challenge right now where we're at.
Great.
Absolutely. I wholly agree with that, Kate. And I think that for when we were talking about this before this particular call, I think our first point of agreement was that there is now an understanding of the complexity of this topic, and that buying does not happen in a silo. Services do not happen in a silo. And that this topic reaches every realm of humans' lives that are actually part of our supply chain. So when we where our services or our purchasing agreements or our commercial relationship ends, there is a filter out effect of how those things were brought to the communities, how that access was delivered. And so in terms of where we are at with gender equity, I think there's two: mounting awareness of the complexity. And then in addition to that, I think that we are seeing a not only a complexity, mounting complexity of the topic, but also of how we look at it. So, you know, when we first started out on these journeys of ours, you know, as two industries, but similar industries a long time ago, it was okay. Access. Okay, does that? And now we're getting to, does access equal? Does it turn into participation? Does participation turn into results? And then the results turn into commercial benefit. And so I think that we are at a place where we're asking the right questions and wanting to pull that across, pull those things out of silos and across our industries.
Mm-hmm. Great. Kate, do you have any reflections you want to echo back? Or
no, I mean, absolutely. I think I think that understanding of siloed thinking versus integral is really important for moving forward with how we're working in our, you know, we think of it as a chain, and it's really not a chain. It's a lot of people talking and moving parts throughout. It's a network of people and influence. And that's what is a great realization for us to have, you know, and I guess we're at a point now where we have some information, and moving from here, I think we have a lot of opportunity.
great.
And I think I might add here that, you know, the context for this work as the industry has moved forward on their gender journey, what we've seen is sort of a beginning with gender coffee or gender cocoa, so women's coffee, women's cocoa, which is a very important market access strategy. Then we also see an expansion into very specific programs designed to specifically benefit the women in a supply chain. So things like leadership training, village savings and loans, these kinds of programs that are really designed to impact women directly. And what we're talking about here for the first time is about this: how are we ensuring that the rest of the extension and advisory services that are being provided, which of course represent the lion's share of the training happening at Origin, how do we ensure that that is designed for women, will benefit women, and will so will reach and benefit women appropriately. And I think it's really showing sort of an evolution of how we're all thinking in the industry about gender equity.
Thanks, Greg. So let's move into talking about the Gender Equity Index itself. So we've highlighted the need and the opportunity. And I want to underscore that the tool, the Gender Equity Index, was designed with input and support from a diverse array of industry leaders, companies that invested financial resources and time to help make sure that this tool really would be fit for purpose to respond to the needs and the opportunities within both of the coffee and cocoa sectors. We also had a panel of gender experts. We had 6 women from diverse backgrounds in academia, research, development, standards, and certification, and had been working many years in both Africa and Latin America and Asia on the issue of gender in agriculture. So this Gender Equity Index you see here are the 5 domains that we aligned on as these 2 groups working together. We chose to link them to the well-known framework of the International Food Policy Research Institute, IFPRI, called the Reach, Benefit, Empower, and Transform framework. And each of these domains, the way the tool works, there's an online platform again, two different tools. One is for extension and advisory service providers. Those can be public sector government extension services. Those can be private sector companies. Those can also be not-for-profit development organizations. So that's what we refer to when we talk about extension and advisory service providers. And then producer organizations. Many of you are aware of our long-term work with producer organizations. We developed a diagnostic tool quite a few years ago and have been working with more than 50 farmer organizations around the world on that, with using that tool. Now what we've done is we've brought together the index for extension and advisory service providers to align it with, to adapt the producer organization index to the gender equity index for extension advisory service providers. So this alignment really helps us to dig in more deeply to project analysis, where we have development agencies, for example, that are delivering services to farmers and farmer organizations inside of a project, that we can apply the tool and really see how the data highlights the needs and the opportunities to improve capacity of service provision to be more gender equitable, both within the farmer organizations and with the service provider that is providing the services. So what we're solving for here specifically is access to vocational education. So I just want to underscore that this tool really is about helping companies that are providing services on the ground to get a snapshot essentially of their current performance. What are the issues where they're doing well with regards to gender equity, maybe where there are gaps, so that the services that are being provided can actually reach and benefit the large number of women that are currently not able to access those services. And so here, I just want to highlight a snapshot of the report. This is what it looks like. Both the report for service providers and producer organizations look similar. They have a score and a spider chart that shows the performance on the 5 domains. And then each domain has specific recommendations by domain. And then many pages of question-specific recommendations, depending on the answer of the taker, the person who's taken the assessment, or the company that's taken the assessment. And so there's really a lot of detailed information that comes out in the report. And the intention with the report is not so much, first and foremost, the score. We have seen that scores are not very high right now. Obviously, this is a relatively new issue. And really what we are encouraging is that companies and organizations use the gender equity index to design their own gender equity development plan. And that really is where the focus lies, that we can take the recommendations from the report, the GEI report, and then use them as sort of as the foundation to a credible gender equity development plan. We recently finished a diagnostic of 11 farmer organizations and 1 extension advisory service provider in Latin America. And I just wanted to highlight that this is sort of the analysis and the role of equal origins when we're looking at more than one service provision company or farmer organization, that we can bring together the analysis of the farmer organizations with the EAS provider. This is domain 1 on organizational capacity. These are the 3 key subdomains of leadership and decision making, strategies, policies, and plans, and awareness. So just to give a snapshot of the kind of analysis that is possible when we use the two tools together.
And I might just add here
Sure,
that
Greg.
what you can see is that the yellow area is a subdomain. So domain 1 covers really measures an organization's capacity to develop and maintain gender awareness amongst staff over time. This requires obviously sort of a plan of professional development where gender equity is reviewed at least annually as part of a training program. But it also measures things like leadership buy-in and gives us some insights about specific interventions that may be necessary. So this was extremely helpful for organizing cohorts and really defining what the issues were. We had 11 producer organizations, and we could quickly see that strategy and policy development was going to be important for several organizations. You can see those organizations that have no yellow representation there. And then the orange piece here too, you can see varying levels of leadership buy-in. So we could also see a cohort come together where specific training and outreach to the leadership of the producer organizations would be highly beneficial.
Thanks, Greg. So I'd like to turn to Kate and Brooke now to, we've had a number of conversations and both of you have, I remember early on talking with you both and you were like, oh yeah, not a lot of like nodding about what we were saying about what we have seen as the opportunity of the tool. And so would love to hear from you. What is inspiring to you, or what do you see as the opportunity of the Gender Equity Index?
Sure. I think from early days, this is an opportunity actually for everyone to get involved in gender equity. Yesterday, we spoke about, the UN He for She campaign, and, gender equity is not 50% of the world's problem. And so that is, I think, what the Gender Equity Index is and Equal Origins is bringing to light, and not just bringing to light, but providing a tool and a framework to sort of execute and improve. And I think that is what, from origin experiences, and just since we're dealing with so many, like Brooke mentioned, so many different actors, the dynamic in each one of those areas is different. And this is speaking to, each one of those in a different way. So, that's where I think the biggest opportunity is. And it's in the bread and butter of what we're working with farmers. And so it's not an additional, it's more of a are we working and how are we looking at this? So I think that's really, that's very exciting, because it means everybody can get excited.
Thanks, Kate. I love that. I want to underscore what you said about it. It isn't additional, right? It is something that we just look at holistically with whatever activities we're doing in the supply chain, that the index gives a company, a service provider, a pharma organization, the opportunity to really understand how they can embed gender equity in everything that the organization is doing.
Yeah,
Brooke.
I echo what you said, Kate. And I think that I get excited about, I think, two different things. So one is the economics that play into this, and then two is the standardization. So let's start with the standardization. I feel like that sets the stage. So if we think back a decade or two ago in both coffee and cocoa, a lot of things were happening, but there are two things that were happening in my mind. So one, certifications were standardizing our approach to sustainability and in how coffee or cocoa should be grown and traded, and how the people in those supply chains should be treated, how the environment was to be treated. That became a standardized process. And then at the same time, in each given organization, this call is 50% development and producer development organizations and producer groups. So at the same time, all of these organizations that were delivering services to farmers, buying coffee or cocoa from farmers, issues were there. Gender was always there. And so therefore gender dynamics were always there. And so you had individuals in each of these organizations saying, what are we going to do about X, Y, or Z? And you kind of were going it alone to try to figure that out. So, Kate in Ecuador is trying to figure out, how do I address this in my organization and or with my supply chain? I'm over in Rwanda doing the same thing. And we follow these brain patterns of trying to understand how to address these issues while certifications are standardizing an approach. So what the index is doing is it is standardizing how we think through access and opportunities that get us to gender equity within our service provision structures, which in coffee and cocoa is leading into gender equity in our buying structures as well, and our commercial trade structures. And so that standardization opportunities is something that I think that both of our industries are going to benefit from. And it's not lost on any of us that the people talking on this webinar currently are all from the global north. And a lot of people listening are from the global south. And so by participating in the Gender Equity Index, you are casting your vote for how you want to use it going forward and seeing it evolve. Just as certification standards have evolved and issue new versions and learn and grow and develop over time, the Gender Equity Index has the ability to do that as well, while providing you a standardized way to look at something so that you're not going it alone. And then in addition to that, I was thinking about this more after we spoke with this great crew at Equal Origins and with Kate, thinking through, we were responsible for a lot of different stuff at our individual organizations. And one of those was looking at the books and making sure that what we were doing made sense and had commercial results at the end. And so what the index is going to let you do is understand if all of these efforts that you're putting into putting your people on the ground and your men and women out training every day, are those amplified, or are those only 50% as effective as they could be? And so it just provides a standardized way to look at all of that in a way that doesn't really cast judgment or issue. It's objective. So that was a bit of a ramble. I apologize.
No, it's great. And it's also, it is bringing it together in terms of the organization. And so, that's another thing to really highlight is the empowerment angle. This isn't about reporting something to your customer. This is about taking the time as an organization to strengthen and to be aware of what's going on and giving you that language and giving you that framework. We're not asking for reporting of numbers. We're hoping for improvement. We're asking, how can we help be part of the solution? But we're not turning it into something, that is kind of giving, do I pass, do I not? No, this is more of a journey that we want to be on together. And this framework and this language is going to help us get there. So completely.
And what Kate and Brooke are also implying here, and this is an important thing that Kimberly and I have seen in all of our many conversations over the last 2.5 years on this journey, is that very often in a development agency, what you see is that the topic of gender is very siloed. You will see that there is an entire team that has been developed to improve agronomic outcomes on the farm, economic outcomes, environmental outcomes on the farm. You have an entire team that's set up to do that. But what becomes clear after utilizing the Gender Equity Index is that every person on the team has a role in ensuring gender equity. And this is the piece that is so scalable in many ways, is that you begin to see, wow, the program designers, the M&E people, accounting and budgeting has a role here, leadership have a role, the trainers on the ground, agronomists and technicians on the ground have a role. And what the index does, because of the various domains, is it allows everybody to see what their specific role is and how they can impact gender equity in carrying out the responsibilities of their job, ensuring this happens. And this comes back to what Kimberly opened with, is that the gender equity is multidimensional, and there's no one reason that we're seeing such low participation of women. It's a constellation of issues that, when worked on holistically, really begin to move the needle in terms of women's participation and benefit of our EAS services.
Thanks to you all. And to reflect from where I sit, I've been in the coffee sector for 30 years. I've worked also in cocoa for a number of years, and I've been thinking about this issue of women's empowerment and gender equity for I don't know, 20 years or more. And I think what's most exciting to me, gender is often considered a very challenging topic, right? And many people do not want to do the wrong thing, right? There's a concern that, okay, well, if we do the wrong thing, we might exacerbate gender inequality or cause harm. And for me, from where I sit, what I'm so excited about with the Gender Equity Index, as has been highlighted already by our two panelists and Greg, is that it really gives everyone the tools to participate and to be successful along this journey. And it is a journey. You don't flip a switch and from one day to the next, today we're not gender equitable and tomorrow we will be. It is this journey. And we're excited as Equal Origins to be able to be that the organization that can support you all on this journey, not only with the tool, but also to services and advisory support that we can provide to make sure that you're able to demonstrate your success along the way. So we have another question, which is really all about what can we all do? How do we get involved in this work? So the tool, I want to underscore that the Gender Equity Index is an internal tool. I think Kate also highlighted this is not about sharing scores. It's not about blasting out, we got a 85%. It really is about what you do with the information to get on that credible gender equity journey, because that's where then we can communicate about our activities, about our commitments, seek investment, seek support where we need to have it in order to make progress along our gender equity journey. We're all on this path as individuals, as organizations, and as these industries. And I'd also like to highlight that those of you that are working in other sectors besides coffee and cocoa, that the index works for other sectors as well. And we'd be happy to have conversations with you about how the tool can work in other sectors. The opportunity here is again, this communications tool. So how can the tool actually monitor and evaluate your progress over time and help you actually to communicate? So obviously, Kate pointed to the producer organizations and her partners in different countries. Westrock, of course, works with a number of different service providers. So this tool can really help us all start to communicate in a common language and with some shared metrics to be able to better engage and better take action and better target investments in this work. And I think Kate touched on this. This really is about, a common language, especially those of us in coffee, but I know also in cocoa, there are standards for quality, right? Coffee quality and cocoa quality. And we have this whole flavor wheel to determine flavor characteristics. And that over the past 20 years in coffee and shorter time in cocoa really has helped to facilitate conversations and business around quality. So why not? And this is what we're excited also about the tool, is that we're building this foundation for a common language on gender equity. How do we communicate and take action and drive greater impact? So we want to invite everyone here. There's a chance for all of you to join the growing number of partners who have invested in different ways in our work and who are advocating for this work. We're especially grateful for Westrock and Cacao Latitudes for being here today, and both Brooke and Kate, your ongoing enthusiasm and support and advocacy of the tool and our work. We know this is not something that we're going to do by ourselves or just these few companies that are here, and that there really is a role for everyone on this call, every company that you are representing, and each of you in your roles within your companies. So we've put here a QR code for the tool, so you can hold your phone up and take a shot of that to open up the Gender Equity Index, or you can use that link. We'll send out the link via email to all of you who have participated, and you can sign up just as a demo user. You can sign up as a service provider or a farmer organization, and go ahead and explore, check it out. The information is yours. This is not about making data public. The tool is meant to be an internal tool to guide your conversations and processes, and really use the results to build your own gender equity development plan. We're available. We'd love to help you and support you to design that gender equity development plan. We're in the process, for example, right now with a group of farmer organizations from Peru and Mexico, thanks to both Kate's investment and some investment from Allegro Coffee. And so we're working with these farmer organizations to take the index and build their own gender equity development plans. For farmer organizations, we do have an online platform where the idea is that companies can see what the farmer organizations are doing in terms of their gender equity development plans, and potentially invest in that work or advocate and support the farmers as they're taking action in their organizations. We have a program called the Better Together training program, so we would love to talk with you about that. Again, anyone is welcome to take the index anytime. And what we find is that it can be a much more effective engagement process if we actually have some facilitated conversations about the importance of gender equity. What do we mean when we talk about the different domains? What's the rationale behind those domains? How do the questions and subdomains ladder up into the meaningful report and recommendations that you get? And then inside that Better Together program, we work with companies to design their gender equity development plan and really get on that path, considering how to structure and design projects and services with a gender equity lens, with that gender integration in everything that you're doing on the ground in farming countries. I've put my contact information and Greg's contact information directly there. And I'd love to maybe invite Brooke and Kate, if you have anything else to say, Greg too, and then we'll open up and we'll look at the question. So anything either of you would like to add at this point?
I think, Brooke, would you like to start?
Sure, I can start. Yeah, I would just add what Equal Origins has done here is made an assessment that could lead to your very well earned sustainability budgets becoming more effective. They've made that tool free, they've made it private, and they made it accessible to anybody who wants to go and take it. So that's pretty low risk, high reward setup if I'm looking at that on a chart. And so I just encourage folks to go and take it. And then, all right, so step one would be, okay, what's the assessment telling me? Do I agree with it? Do I not agree with it? Is it somewhere in between? Have your conversations internally. And then so that would be step one, is the assessment. And then okay, I want to understand how to move from not about improving your score, but about making your what you're doing more gender accessible, more gender equitable, and making it built in and integrated into your organization.
Right.
And so you get to do that, or you get to reach out to Kimberly and Greg and ask them to take you through the Better Together training program, or ask them to give you some to become a partner in advisory services that can happen in a realm of manners. So that's low-hanging fruit. I would do it.
You have done it, right?
You have done
I have done
it. Right. Great. Thanks, Brooke. That's great.
No, I would very much agree. And I think it's sort of low hanging fruit in terms of a great opportunity to get an understanding. We can talk to you about it, but the best thing for you is to go and take it and look through and understand the questions, because the feedback that I've gotten from producer organizations after they are guided by Equal Origins through this process is just a refreshing and surprising perspective from both the men and women in the organizations. And that says something. And so I think the best opportunity is diving in and understanding, for sure.
Thanks, Kate. Great. I don't see any questions in the formal Q&A function. Does anybody want to raise a hand? Is there anything?
While people are thinking about an additional question, I'll just provide a couple technical things about this QR code. One is that it takes you to the English language account sign up page. In the upper right corner, you can select your language, also in French or Spanish. So that's important to do. And there are 4 organizational types that you can choose from. One is for extension and service providers, and then one is for extension and service providers for demo. The difference between those two are really that the demo your score doesn't add up to industry benchmarks. So that's why we recommend that if you're just going in, answering questions to the best of your ability, just to get a sense for the questions, get a sense for the recommendations that are output, that you utilize the demo, because then our data won't use that score in terms of calculating industry benchmarks, which I think is something which is, again, an additional side benefit of this work is really being able to stand back across an entire industry and see where the strengths and weaknesses lie. So that's what's happening there. And also, for each assessment, for each organization type, you need a separate email. So if you, for instance, wanted to see the survey for producer organizations and you wanted to see the survey for extension and service providers, you'll need 2 different emails in order to achieve that exploration.
Thanks, Greg.
Could I ask a couple of questions?
Yeah, of course. Of course.
So as folks are deciding to if they want to go in and use the demo user or use a service provider, however they want to use the tool, what are their resources? Is there a user guide, or should folks reach out to you directly if they have questions?
Yeah, great question. Really, really both. You'll find as you go in to the GEI, you'll get a pop-up box once you start the assessment, and it will ask if you would like to review the guidance document first. And so you can access guidance document in Spanish, French, and English, both for service providers and producer organizations. And then, yes, of course, if any questions arise along the way, please do reach out to us, either to Greg or to me. And I think there's also another there's another email address in the system too that you can reach out to get your questions answered.
And then as people have questions or suggestions on things that they would like to see in the tool or what have you, how do they send feedback to you as well?
Yes, thanks. That's a really great point. We have tested the tool with a variety of different users over the past 9 months or year now. So we feel like it really is fit for purpose. And there's always an opportunity to improve. So if, especially in different languages too, if the questions just aren't clear, maybe there's something you'd recommend that we change in terms of language, certainly open to that. And then two, also, if there are questions that you feel would be better to include in some way, we welcome that. And in fact, in some of the recent work we've done in Latin America, one of the funders requested that we include questions on vulnerable populations, right? Because we know that gender, it's a multi-dimensional issue, and the issues of equity are not only to do with gender, but also to do with different other marginalized groups, indigenous groups, different ethnic backgrounds, different religious backgrounds. And so there are questions within the diagnostic that also tease out these other issues. So there's always opportunity to add additional questions. We would look at to adapting to other agricultural sectors. There may need to be an adapted tool for those. We've had conversations with the fisheries sector, the rice and cotton as well. And so we are looking at also too how we might need to adapt the tool along the way. Thanks, those are great questions. Okay. Kate, were you going to ask something? Okay.
Yeah, I was actually going to. I know it's a little bit early days when you take the assessment. We're right now in the process of really getting our partners in origin to connect with the GEI and start their journey. But can you talk a little bit about some people who have plans, or in general, what are some of the action things or changes that you see in organizations? Because I think that helps to give people an understanding of, okay, there's, some action items in different organizations that are as simple as this.
Right.
That's a great question. I'll start with one, and then Greg, if you want to share one that occurs to you. But we have a project in Nicaragua right now with funding from the Starbucks Foundation, and I had to prepare our quarterly report on that project. And I was in conversation with one of our partners there from Cooperativa 20 de Abril in Nicaragua, and the very process of going through our virtual learning journey and responding to the diagnostic helped this the two women that are participating in the virtual learning journey to go. They'd been talking about gender for a number of years in the organization and advocating, we should do something about this issue of gender equity in our cooperative. And just by getting started with this process of taking the diagnostic and participating in the conversations, leadership of the organization opened up and they said, okay, yes, we agree that this is now a priority, something we should take action on. And the report actually showed them that one key opportunity was that they didn't have a gender policy. And so we worked with them to design their gender policy and strengthen that gender policy, and their policy passed within their General Assembly of the cooperative. So, you know, even just asking the questions and having the conversations really does, one, underscore the importance of the issue, the market interest in the issue as well, and that it for the people in the organization, it actually gives a sort of a back kind of like a strengthening, a framework that of information and detail and recommendations that can really support them to take action in a meaningful way.
And I guess to give you a little insight into how this works too, is that the gender equity development plans that are being created are implemented within the context of existing projects. So in other words, you're actually doing, for instance, good agricultural practices training, and during that training is when this gender equity capacity building plan is actually being implemented. So it's not and sort of an additional siloed capacity building project at the EAS. It's designed in such a way that each one of these projects, whether it be regenerative agroforestry or carbon management, that within the design and delivery of that program, you're actually working on your gender equity development plan. And so, for instance, one of the ways that this looked like is there was an organization that had a group of agronomists and technicians, and this group of agronomist technicians took 5 days, took a week to do internal training. And the internal training covered topics of regenerative agriculture and soil analysis and integrated pest management. And what we were able to demonstrate is that training program should be adding also a gender awareness element to that ongoing program, so that you're just beginning to take a look at what you're already doing and what you're and who is doing what, and how then do we move forward on our gender equity development plan within the context of activities that we are already conducting. And again, in this way, everybody begins to see that they have a role to play. If you have staff who really think that gender equity is somebody else's responsibility, that's a real strong indicator that this tool is going to have a significant and transformational impact on the organization.
Thanks so much, Greg. And what Greg is pointing to also leads into some of the services that we can provide as Equal Origins. That was one of the questions that we just answered. And certainly we can help organizations to implement their policies and improve their project design, integrate gender responsive budgeting. So those are all the kinds of things that we would be eager to hear how we can help and offer those services. So we're at time. There is another question in the Q&A. We'll promise to answer that because I think it's a great one. What strategies are best to advocate with commercial teams, and that gender equality and women's empowerment are not nice to have, but critical business results? We can send out a response to that in our email follow-up. So want to honor everyone's time. We're just a minute after the top of the hour. Thank you first to our panelists, Brooke and Kate. It's really been a thrill to work with you to put together the panel, and thanks for your wise words and your support for the work. Thanks to Greg, and thanks to our translation. Thanks, Marta, and thanks mostly to all of you for joining us today. We know you have many things that you're prioritizing, and the fact that you prioritize this conversation on gender equity is significant. So we're excited to have you along this journey with us, and look forward to hearing from you and having you join us. Thanks so much, everyone. Have a great day.